We're here at the IAS with the folks from the Student Global AIDS Campaign, and we have Will, Katie,
Jake.
and Jake. Okay, and you participated just now in an action, and it came into the media center, and tell us about that specific action.
Sure. Well, right now we think that the biggest barrier to providing treatment to people in the Global South and all around the world is an incredible lack of healthcare workers. We don't have the money to hire healthcare workers. We don't have the money to support the current healthcare workers. Just in the continent of Africa alone, it carries about 24% of the world's disease burden and around 3% of the world's healthcare workers. So as drugs have become increasingly inexpensive, we don't have the people literally to deliver the drugs to the people who need them the most. So we were out there calling for attention for this issue, calling for funding from PEPFAR, from the Global Fund, from African governments, to make sure that we can fill the gap on healthcare workers.
And you want to, either of you want to contribute?
Sure. Just to add to what Will said, all of those reasons he stated, some of the underlying policies for why there is this shortage of healthcare workers, there's a lot of structural issues, such as policies imposed by the IMF, especially, and the World Bank, that prevent these countries from being able to invest any money into public health sector or into education. And so that's one of our demands, and that's what people are calling for, is to change these structural underlying causes so that this shortage of healthcare workers can be addressed.
And that's worldwide.
Yeah, and it, sub-Saharan Africa and countries within the Global South are especially affected and impacted by this.
Do we find that people who are likely to be from a country will go out and get trained and come back to their country?
No,
Not likely.
They tend, as the term is called, brain drain. There's oftentimes people, they leave their countries because the working conditions are so awful and they can't make a living, so they leave.
They see the opportunity and they move. So the other actions that you're involved with, which are equally important, I'm sure, give me a taste of those.
Well, we had an action earlier today that focused on the President's emergency plan for AIDS relief, which was just passed and again by the Congress and the Senate and signed by the President. And it's great in that they've allocated $48 billion to AIDS relief around the world. But there are some significant problems. One of the most pressing of which is the prostitution loyalty oath, which basically prevents organizations that work with sex workers it prevents them from basically helping sex workers, who are some of the ones who are most in need of assistance, because of this kind of like moralistic religious right sentiment that is so popular in the U.S. these days, and another way that that's shown in PEPFAR is the Mexico city policy, which
yeah, well, it's basically, if any organization, if they even provide counseling or refer someone to a provider that provides an abortion, they can't get any funding from the U.S. government.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and it's highly problematic and prevents people from getting the education and the care that they need. Just as our really strong emphasis on abstinence-only education,
Right.
people have the right to have knowledge to protect themselves, and our policies don't reflect that.
Without strings.
Yeah.
Without strings. So any other actions that you've been involved with?
Well, do you have commentary?
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we're really talking about increasing access to life-saving drugs. So in a lot of cases, we're targeting pharmaceutical companies, and right now the Colombian government, we're really trying to support the Colombian government. Civil society has asked them to issue a compulsory license, which would increase access. So there's a public health emergency
To Kaletra.
which is a drug that Abbott produces. So we had an action yesterday to say we support the Colombian government. We hope that you issue this compulsory license so that the thousands of people in your country that really desperately need this drug will have access to it.
Yeah. Because the problem is that in a middle-income country such as Colombia or Thailand, where people live on $2 or less a day, they can't afford the almost $2,000 for a life-saving AIDS medication. So,
Right.
yeah.
So what are your plans from, I mean, you came to the conference with that organization, which
Right.
is hopefully going to do some really socially responsible work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're here doing this work, you're doing the actions. Do you feel that you're going to get heard? I mean, there's a lot of media out there. While we were talking here, the action was still going on.
Right.
So, and actually Greg has made some tape of that, so we'll have that actually in the context of our video as well. So, but it is interesting to see how this will transpire and whether we'll actually have results from any of this action and so forth, or other actions for that matter. Yeah.
Well, we're going through the appropriations process right now in the U.S. government. We said that PEPFAR was reauthorized, but we still have to allocate the money for it.
The health department and so forth.
Of
and
course.
Yeah.
So as we go through appropriations, we'll be fighting to fully fund the bill and things like that.
Maybe to change some of these.
Right. I've been there and
problems
done
with
that
it.
before
Yeah.
myself, for ADAP and so forth. So you're going to participate in that activity. You're going to be on the Hill, Washington.
Yeah, and the hope is that hopefully with a new president in office in January, that some of these things might get
And you're laying the groundwork
reformed.
now and so forth. Yeah.
We have college students all around the nation. We have a presence in over 80 college campuses.
And
we're
high
gonna
schools.
in high schools. We're mobilizing those people to really sort of hold decision makers accountable and make sure that we fully fund all these initiatives.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we all wish you well, and I hope that you all will continue on this fight in whatever your endeavors and professionally and avocationally down the line. Thank you
Great.
all very much.
This conference should be about raising money to hire health workers throughout the continent of Africa and other countries ravaged by inadequate workforces and prevalent disease. Where's the money? Where is PEPFAR's money? Where is UK's money? Where is International Health Partnership money? Where is Global Fund money? Where is Africa's countries' money? 15% from Africa. 15% promised 7 years ago at Abuja. 2 countries only have met it. Shame. Shame. Two countries Global Fund and PEPFAR keep training the same health workers over and over again. Do they educate new health workers? No. Do they pay them adequate salaries? No. Do they make sure that they have the supplies and equipment they need? No. No. One question is, why isn't there more funding? It's the IMF. We went to the World Bank, but it's actually the IMF. Even when we try to raise money, the IMF tells countries, you can't spend it. You can't spend your own money. You can't spend aid money. A study that looked at African countries' ability to spend new aid dollars over a 7-year period, 74 cents got diverted to currency reserves and debt reduction. Only 27 cents on the dollar was spent. Only 27 cents. That means instead of 4 doctors, you could only hire 1. This is an outrage that the IMF has these policies that restrict countries from spending their own money and needed foreign aid resources. We have to have a campaign for sustainable, long-term financing from African country governments and from donors. And we need the IMF to get off our back. Off our back!